first step of the two-step process to just expand the area that is eligible for the tax abatement that they've already been approved for. So nothing would be changed with regards to the abatement schedule or anything that was done in 2022. This is for what used to be the Turtle Creek project with Duke, and it's now Sullivan County Power with Doriva. But they've added some parcels and then removed a few parcels as well to that site area. And this is just what's required statutorily to get that area approved for the abatement that's already been signed off on by the council. So in order to do that, this is a preliminary step. This resolution doesn't bind anyone to anything, it's just the first required one. The second would be at another meeting, and it would also be a public hearing, so there would be opportunity for the public to come comment, ask questions. And after that public hearing, there would be a second resolution confirming the boundary change of this area. So it's kind of like a procedural correction, if anything. There are parcels being added, but again, this is not reapproving any abatement or changing the terms that they're subject to under like the EDA, for example. And any change to the EDA that might happen would be only with regard to like these changed boundaries in the construction timeline, so.
So are we adding parcels to an abatement, is what you're saying?
Yes, but the proposed investment in that kind of thing has not changed. So it's just the site area, and I don't know the reason for the change, if I'm going to that, but.
Yeah, they're also removing some parts.
Okay, cause yeah, that's what I'm looking at, the declaration and resolution, for revitalization area. So,
Yeah, it's amending like an existing economic revitalization area, and that's what that is, map, and then there's
well,
a
that's what I was
couple.
looking at, so you're taking houses out of,
I don't know that there's any this would be for the solar project site, so this wouldn't be where people are living, this is part of the project site that would be eligible to receive
okay,
abatement
so
on the taxes.
refresh my memory, cause it's been like 2022 that we worked on this. Is this the new Lebanon area? So isn't that solar back behind those houses? And you're removing those houses from the TIF?
This has nothing to do with the TIF.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is adding to the abatement.
Adding some, removing some, just changing the just where those parcels are.
Okay.
It's just changing the footprint of the property that will be abated. The amount of investment, the amount of employment, the amount of payroll, all that remains the same. It's just going to be where the panels will be sitting.
Or related infrastructures,
Yeah.
yeah. And like the size of the project itself, like mega wattage is not changing.
The abatement
So
expired.
Lou, that, we already have this set in stone right now, right? We already agreed on the, and now we're gonna go back, revisit it and kind of change everything. I'm gonna imagine there's gonna be some paperwork, legal fees, some cost and all that involved in it.
Yeah,
Correct.
so, I mean, if you recall with the Maple Creek project, amendment we did last year, this would require a similar $50,000 amendment fee, or the amendment to the EDA that we would ask the council to consider next time, but that amendment would really only change, you know, the maps that are attached as a result of this, and then just stating, now that it's about to start, like when the construction timeline would actually be, because as you know, we keep seeing these delays in the, permitting authority and the MISO queue, and so we would update that timeline. But this is not, I know maybe there had been some discussion last fall about a lot more proposed changes to this project. This is completely stripped down from what that original proposal from the company was, and it's just this changed abatement area and then that construction timeline, but we would subject it to the $50,000.
So have you started construction? I have a reason why I'm asking this. Because I'm hearing from one landowner, they were told construction has began. And then I'm hearing from other landowners that Gary was saying construction has not begun yet.
So I think we can answer that and kind of introduce
Yeah.
the project a
Because
little bit if that's
if it's
helpful.
started, it's kinda, I don't know how we do this if we've already started.
Yeah, so we'll just introduce ourselves and we can walk through it and we can definitely answer that question because it's a big one. And it has to do with just some of the language in our lease and how that's structured. But I'm Brendan Andrew, I lead, solar development at Deriva. So I took over this, late last year, and, Patrick Walsh here is on my team. He's kind of taken charge of this project more recently, and so we're trying to kind of, I know you guys have seen a lot of different faces from Duke and Deriva on this project, so we're kind of trying to, reestablish how we work with the county and working to re-enter, or to extend the EDA and update the ERA area as part of that effort. So Patrick, I'll let you kind of speak to it more.
And so more specifically, for the purpose of redefining the boundaries of the economic revitalization area is to redefine and make sure that all the infrastructure that Deriva plans to bring to the county is subject to those requirements set forth in the EDA. So that also includes those economic development payments, right? That's a function of the amount of investment that we bring. Things like labor, these are all a function of what's inside the ERA. So cleaning that up in the original map and parcel list was a fairly good guess at where our project was gonna be, but that boundary has changed slightly. And to Hannah's point, there were a couple of residential parcels in that original ERA, so we do wanna pull those out because it doesn't make sense for those to be included. So we added a couple of parcels to accommodate our phase one design, primarily just because our project has changed slightly and we wanna make sure that the footprint in the recorded ERA with the county is equivalent to our site footprint. To answer your question specifically, construction has not physically begun, but in order to preserve our lease rights with the ground that we have under lease, we did have to evolve the lease from what's called the development term into the construction term of the lease. So technically within the leases, we just have to pay an elevated amount of rent, and that is typically done when you start construction. But since the timeline for our construction actually physically starting construction has not aligned with the expiration of our development term of our lease, we did move those leases into the construction term, so we are paying that.
I would just say we've entered the term of the lease where it allows us to do construction, but that doesn't mean we have started construction.
Okay, cause that's what confused me, because the EDA payments were based on when construction begins.
Mhm.
So it sounds like you got two different sets of rules of, yes, we're in construction, but no, we're not in construction, but we're gonna, for the EDA, you're not, but for the landowners, you are, and that gets really confusing, cause it
Yeah.
sounds like you ought to have, either we are or we're not.
Yeah, it's just the name of a amount of time in the lease. I would say we're working with the county commission on the road use agreement and the other requirements that are needed for us to physically start construction. So I think as far as physically starting construction, we're making sure we're coordinated closely with the council. We're not using any roads that we're not authorized to use, and we're making sure that we're doing that pursuant to the requirements that are in the EDA, so that we're not running afoul of any of those. But you're right, it is confusing because there is a term in our lease called the construction term, but all that means is that's the time where we have the rights to perform construction on their property, but it doesn't mean we are performing construction on that property, if that makes sense.
So refresh my memory, Lou, on those abatements, did we have set forth in the abatements that construction had to start by a certain time?
It's in the EDA.
It's in the EDA, okay.
And what was it? Cause for some reason,
that's
4 years is in my brain, and I don't know if that's
It's
right.
been a while.
So they are a little behind, and this is what we're gonna plug into the EDA along with these maps, if you guys approve them, is to extend that construction timeline by a year, because they were, the estimated time, at the time they were approved back in 2022, they thought they were gonna have it done by the end of 2025. With the MISO delays, that didn't happen, but they also knew they were gonna be changing this area, so we're trying to just do all of that in one small kind of technical amendment to the EDA, which we would ask you guys to look over more carefully in the coming month before the next second meeting.
And that's not unique, the delay is not unique to them. We're seeing that with many of these developers. The queues for getting connected to the grid just got delayed, and it has to go through all kinds of approval processes. And there were so many applications submitted, not just for these, not just for this area, but all over the Midwest, that the queue got backed up, they couldn't process everything quickly enough, so.
And also refresh my memory, do you have a buyer for your power?
Yes, so we are finalizing our power purchase agreement now, and so that is the agreement that kind of dictates who we're gonna sell the power to. And it's not announced yet, but yeah, we are working hard to kind of finalize that agreement, and that's what allows us to finalize our EPC agreement and start construction all at the same time. So all of that is coming in the next, I would say, 3 months. So we're looking to mobilize for some of the pre-construction activities in March and April. So that would be some light tree clearing, some pre-seeding of the ground, which Patrick can speak to the benefits of that a little bit more. But pre-seeding with a native grass mix to reduce erosion. And then we would be mobilizing for kind of more formal construction later this year, in the kind of summer timeframe.
Lou, that brings questions as far as the EDA. You have pre-construction work, and then you got construction work. Where does the EDA timeline kick in? Because it had, once you start within, 6 months or 50% of the work, there's a timeline when all this starts. This is kind of what I was going back when they said, yeah, we're under construction, but we're not under construction. But now we're talking pre-construction and construction.
They're under construction. The leases provide for a construction term of the lease. And typically that will require an increase in payment. Correct. The amount of rent goes up. So you've got what's called in the lease, doesn't call it pre-construction, but in the lease, you've got a period of time before construction. During that period of time, they're not allowed to do any construction. So there's no construction allowed. If they want to start construction, they have to pay the additional rent, okay? So in order to comply with their leases, and that triggers an extension of the lease term. If they hadn't started the additional payment, their leases could have lapsed. By starting the additional payment and going to the construction phase, for purposes of the lease, they preserve their lease. That's all just language in the lease. That doesn't really affect our timeline. Our timeline is keyed to completion of construction.
Yes,
Actual construction.
Well,
the EDA permits are also triggered when it's like 50% of construction.
right, so 50%, and there was a time,
It's like
there was
50%
a
of the
time, so
solar
that's why I'm
panels.
wondering, is changing the land?
That's,
Cause you're changing the property in the county, so that's what, in my mind, it's
Yes.
like you're doing that.
can I interrupt you a minute? I think I know where you're going. Is the land gonna be farmed this year? Is it gonna be for agricultural purposes?
No, this year,
It'll lay idle.
no, and the landowners that we're working with are aware of that.
So I would
As
say,
far as I'm concerned, it started construction.
so I would
Yeah,
say.
you
Yeah,
Change the
so
plan.
I guess
That-
just to
sorry.
kind of clarify, give you some timelines and what it's gonna look like. So, what's one of the things that's important to us here in Sullivan County is learning from past mistakes, like the Fairbanks project, right? We heard a lot about mucking around in the mud. We heard a lot about erosion and heavy rainfall impacting construction activities. So one of the things that we're employing is this pre-seed ground cover that we're gonna be installing coming in March and early April, weather permitting. What this will do, and that will sit and lay until it germinates and takes, and then we would start full construction in June or July. Then during that time, we would also do some light tree clearing to accommodate our design where the fence lines get in the way of the design. And then in mid-April is when we would plan to start working on our substation. But full project construction of the site facility, like the panel array area, would not begin until June or July. So as far as like hitting like 25-50% construction, I would say those milestones probably won't be reached in 2026, but in 2026 we'll be starting site preparation work so that construction can begin. So pile driving, you know, actual installation of panels, running cabling, those things may come near the end of 2026 and into 27. This is gonna be a 2.5 year long construction project.
It's half of it or a year.
Yeah, or something like that. But
But we
what
need
I'm
a-
going is,
need a hard
they're
date.
taking, until they do these changes, it can still be agricultural land. They're gonna say, okay, now we're gonna make it so you can't do any agricultural land, we're gonna clear trees, plant grand, we'll just lock that away, so in my mind, that's kinda starting
So
something.
we can follow up with the milestones on when we would expect it to be 50% complete, or whatever the milestones are that are in the agreement. And to your point, though, I think what we're sensitive to when we're starting construction is making sure that our landowners know when we're gonna be doing construction, so they're not planting a crop, and then we're coming in 3 months later and bulldozing it all. So I think that's why we issue these construction notices ahead of time, because we would rather, you know, save the farmers from, you know, going through the effort of planting a crop and then us coming in and turning it over to go to construction. So that's why we work with them ahead of time to make sure they know the timeline. We plant the seeding so that we can establish that growth, to help with the erosion during construction and during those rainier times of year. But yeah, we can certainly follow up on exactly what the expectation of those timelines is. Patrick and I don't have that in front of us, but our engineering team has a detailed schedule where we can tell you exactly when we expect 50% complete or a year from start of construction.
Now, is
That's
this-
the rationale for the increased rent payments, is because the property is going to come out of production, farm production. See what I mean?
Is this your entire map, or is there more? Because I knew at one time you were overlapping with Copia Power.
Yes, I think one of the things, there's been a lot of confusion about the parcel ID list and the map, and that's one of the things we want to revise with this lease, is the parcel ID list and the original ERA and the map were not quite the same. So for our first phase project, which is the only project as of right now that's going to construction, that is the map. So
This is phase 1.
right, so the white parcels and the green parcels are the parcels that will be inside phase 1 of this project, come June or July. The red parcels are the parcels that we're removing in that map.
I also wanna clarify, so the change that this resolution is proposing, so this amended economic revitalization area, if you don't approve that, the only thing that would change is that those new parcels that they're gonna be adding to their project site regardless are not eligible to receive abatement on the taxes owed on them. Does that make sense? So, I mean, you don't have to approve this again, like, but that doesn't change the actual project footprint, it just changes what is eligible for the abatement.
And what would be subject to the EDA, the terms of the EDA.
So yeah,
Is
so
that
if we don't,
Not necessarily.
if we don't approve it and get these included, that was where I was going, then our decommissioning bond and all those agreements wouldn't apply to these 3 new parcels.
I think it still would, because the decommissioning agreement is about what is the project site and it's independent of the abatement, so any of the work any of the project facilities are still subject to that
Even if it's not
decommissioning
included in
requirements.
the area,
What's that?
even if it's not included in the area that we're recognizing as the project?
In theory, the project area in this economic revitalization area should be the same, but if you choose to not amend formally the ERA, the revitalization area, that doesn't change the actual project site, it would just change the land that's eligible for abatement.
I think one thing that's really important though is that if the land is not included as part of the project area in what's applied, the EDA payments, the way the EDA is structured is actually, by re-entering it, it's a major benefit to this county. As a result of SB1 and the provisions in the EDA, which we are not proposing to change, they'll impose a depreciation floor on our annual tax increase, on our annual taxes. And any increase in the amount of money due payable from the taxable amount to that depreciation floor is a payment in lieu of taxes. So basically, when you get to about year 5 or 6, our depreciation is floored at 30%, and any amount of additional payment made as a result of that EDA is funds that come directly to the county. So at the end of the day, if you don't adopt those parcels, the infrastructure installed on those parcels will not be eligible for the calculation for that payment, basically.
It will depreciate in 2.5 years and then
To zero.
to zero, and then there's nothing to collect.
So do we have a motion to accept this before they change their mind?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I understand that the original abatement has expired for these terms. Can you tell me when the phase 1 was approved, phase 1 abatement was approved?
Anything expired.
Nothing's
expired on it.
Oh, that's, Patrick, that's what I understood from you. So,
The EDA is expired.
okay, so
Yeah.
the actual abatement has not expired.
That's right.
So you're wanting to
The
change.
terminology is very confusing.
Okay,
I have
okay.
a hard time
The
keeping
Okay.
EDA has not expired, for what that's worth. It is still very much in effect because the MISO delay is a permitted delay under
Yeah.
the agreement, so it doesn't have to be formally amended, but we think it's in the best interest of everyone to amend it at the second meeting, just to clearly state what the current construction timeline is, which is about a year delayed. And then if these approvals are done, to incorporate this as well, just for the sake of clarity and transparency.
Yeah.
So phase 1 is in addition then, how's this switching from the original abatement to this phase 1 that you talked about at the commissioners meeting? So,
Yes, I think that they are the same, but what we're doing is just revising the documentation that's in that abatement to make sure that what was is no longer and what is what applies.
So-
Because the map, like we talked, the map was a little confusing when you look at that versus the parcel
Right.
list.
right.
So this clarifies all that
Yeah,
based on
so
our
then
actual
the
design.
phase 1 then, what happens to all of those parcels that were in the original abatement
Mhm.
and now we're taking out because phase 1 is there? So you're only wanting phase 1 in the abatement, is that what you want now?
Yeah, that's right. So
Okay,
we're only
so
asking for abatement. on
Everything
phase
over by
1.
Miram that you guys have signed up, what happens to that?
That is no longer in the abatement, and I think it's, again, a little confusing because the map showed those parcels, but the parcel list in the ERA did not have those parcels. So that's why we're kind of cleaning this up a little bit.
What?
Does that make sense?
Well, I think maybe it needs some more discussion, but I mean, I understand it better now than I did after the commissioner meeting.
Yeah.
But I don't
There will be
understand.
there is a second hearing.
Right, and I don't understand what happens to those parcels in Miram or around Miram. You know, if phase 1 just takes care of around the New Lebanon area. So when do you add phase 2 or phase 3 or whatever New Lebanon or Miram's
So I
gonna
think-
be?
I would say already, I would say it's debated whether or not that's one of the clarifications we're trying to clean up. Cause really the parcel list did not include those parcels. Those would still be under lease pursuant to our lease. And if and when we go to build an additional phase to the project, we would work with the county commission and council, to potentially, enter a similar agreement as the EDA with an abatement, or figure out, the proper pathway to take that project forward into construction.
So when I looked at the list that was in the abatement of the parcel numbers, I looked up all the landowners, and it looked to me like the original abatement had those Miram parcels, but it had some extra parcels that weren't listed. So that was my concern at the commissioners meeting. Now, my concern is just forget about the ones that are on the map but not on the parcel list. There were some parcels listed on the abatement that were around Miram, but now you're wanting to take those out, right? And just do the ones around New Lebanon.
Yeah, we're only including the new abatement, the amended map and parcel list would only be parcels in our phase 1 project that are on that piece of paper too. That's right.
Nancy?
Can we
Yeah.
connect after? Nancy?
I've got the map.
You got it?
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm good, thanks.
We'll walk through it with you, cause when we went through the list, we may have come to a different.
Yeah, I've been
conclusion.
talking to Patrick about it, and somebody from Adams Law, but that was very confusing.
Guys, I'm the emergency management director in the county. Do you guys work with Cynthia too, environmental scientist, doing the phase 1 environmental.
Oh, shoot, you're, yeah, yeah.
Well, she needed to give me the address and stuff. Now, she gave me coordinates, and I know how to do coordinates, but it'd been nice to know where the address was,
Okay.
to check it out, so you might tell her to send it.
Yeah, can we talk to after the meeting about that? Definitely wanna connect with you.
Yeah, I thought maybe you guys was, and I thought, well, I'll just ask them while they're here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Serendipity.
I mean, honestly, I wanna, now that I have new information, you know, I wanna kinda look at that a little more.
Let's
This-
absolutely
yeah,
look at that.
okay.
Alright, so, everybody done asking questions?
Are you ready to make a motion?
I am.
Make your motion.
I make a motion, we approve the preliminary, what's it called, resolution for the amendment of the existing economic revitalization area. That's my motion.
We have a second. Right. I have a motion, a second. Those in favor of accepting the resolution?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
see you soon.
Yeah.
I just have one question. I thought maybe that was. I don't care.
I know you don't, that's why I said it.
Yeah, I know, I don't care.